iPad is, at its core, a hybrid, somewhere between an iPhone and a Mac, but somehow entirely different. How it functions and your experiences with it changes with every accessory you pair it with. I used to think the 12.9 iPad was an incredibly awkward product. A tablet that's meant to browse, made the size of a laptop, and heavy enough that you can't physically hold it up to use for an extended period of time. That experience completely changed when I bought the Benks magnetic stand, an aluminum stand that's magnetic to attach to your iPad with no case necessary. Now rewinding a bit, the first accessory I bought for the iPad was the Apple Magic Keyboard, providing that same magnetic attachment with the extension of a keyboard and a trackpad. But I found after using it for under a week, the keyboard was taking up a lot of space in cases when I wanted to just have it propped up on my desk. My original solution was the Moft case that has its own magnets embedded and cutouts to work with the Magic Keyboard that can simply detach and attach to a Moft stand. But as somebody who doesn't typically use cases, I was in search for a more sophisticated approach. You can imagine where I went from there. In the box is simply the Benks stand, and honestly, I'm a little relieved. Unlike Moft that requires the case, the magnet, and the stand, this just requires the stand. And that stand weighs in at 1.7 pounds and is made entirely of aluminum on the base. It honestly feels like something that Apple should be making. And I think a lot of people would actually spend a ton of money on this if Apple just stamped their logo on it instead. Functionally, the stand is actually really stiff. It takes a lot of effort to unfold this thing, which I actually thought was going to be a problem in this review, but like a lot of things, the problem that I was having was actually a blessing in disguise. The iPad snaps into place and is viewable at incredibly flexible angles, and that stiffness I spoke about that makes it hard to adjust actually leads to much more sturdier grip on the iPad, meaning it doesn't wobble when tapping it even at really low angles. You've got to remember here, this thing is a tank of an iPad at 1.5 pounds, so to have that stand that can hold this far off center of gravity and not lean or bounce is something unheard of. The aluminum body of this stand and sharp edges remind me of an Apple device, and even seeing it side by side with the MacBook Pro and space gray accessories, it's incredible how well these pair together. I mean, even the iPad itself, it seems like it's color matched to this stand. You can imagine the possibilities of this stand are endless for your configuration. I found myself using it more often as a computer on my desk, paired with a keyboard. It's so refreshing to use an iPad with a keyboard while also getting those incredible features like the touchscreen and the mobility of it, including rotation to portrait mode for a refreshing desktop format that you're just not used to, or just simply taking it away altogether without the keyboard for a more comfortable environment. And for when I'm on the go, I love that I can detach this thing and then attach it to my Apple Magic Keyboard for an all-in-one solution. The one obvious concern with this stand is of course that price of $89 US or $114 Canadian. It seems completely ludicrous to pay that much money for a simple stand, but the things to remember here are that 1, it has a strong enough magnet to hold up a 1.5 pound iPad Pro, and a firm enough hold that you can actually use this iPad while it's on the stand. And reminder, you can also use code VittorTech at checkout to save 15% on your order, so it'll even be cheaper there. Now, of course, there are stands out there on Amazon that you can buy that aren't magnetic, and yeah, they'll likely work. Or there's the Moft magnetic stand with the case that I was previously using. But if you're looking for a more premium Apple-like experience, then I can understand why you would spend that $89 to get this stand. Overall, I can say my experience with the Benks magnetic stand has been shockingly positive, and it's actually something that I've been using every single day. Probably more than my Apple Magic Keyboard, depending on the task that I'm doing. Now, if you have questions that I didn't answer in this review, or questions about how I use my iPad day to day, let me know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, remember to hit that like button because it tells YouTube that videos like this don't suck, and remember to hit the subscribe button to see more reviews like this from me. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.